Well, the Calgary Flames, they continued their tradition. As well, after that, they have started off fairly strong. You'll know what I mean as it's time for another episode of... Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to my Calgary Flames in 6. This is episode number 2 in season 4, as I've been doing this for 4 seasons now, recapping how the Calgary Flames have done during the season. And for this episode, we'll talk about the first 6 games of the 2021-22 regular season. As I say at the start of the video, there is one tradition that the Calgary Flames still seem to like to continue, but after that, they're definitely off on a pretty good start so far. And I know it's early and not ready to, plan the parade. We do also realize it is tough to play catch-up in this league. So before I pull out my notes, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Edmonton Roughnecks, Stampeders, just make sure you hit like and subscribe. And I also have my other social links down in the description below. As say in this segments, I always recap how the Calgary Flames have done in mostly 6-game segments. I did my preseason episode, but now these games mean for real. And then of course there's timestamps in the description below if you want to jump to any particular game or any segment. And also we'll touch upon how the Stockton Heat is doing, as I started last season my Stockton Heat quick hits. So I got my notes right here, so let's talk about how the first 6 games went for the Calgary Flames. So before we get into the first game, the Calgary Flames announced their leadership group. They have not announced their captain as of yet. So they have 4 assistant captains with Sean Monahan, Mikael, Backlund, Matthew Tkachuk, and Chris Tanev. So that was the leadership group. So let's get to the regular season. This game 1 happened on Saturday, October the 16th. The Calgary Flames had to wait 5 days until they got to actually start their season, as the Calgary Flames were taking on the Edmonton Oilers on the road at Rogers Place. And then, let's say about that tradition, will this be the year that the Calgary Flames break their losing their first game of the season tradition? Let's find out. Of course, this was the first Battle of Alberta with fans in attendance since that, goalie fight game, Cam Talbot and Mike Smith. That seemed like that happened 18 years ago. So this was the first time the Battle of Alberta actually had fans in attendance, and as expected, it was a very fast-paced and physical start to the game for both sides, given the nature of this rivalry. Actually, it was Edmonton that got on the board first. It was former Flame Derek Ryan, who scored for Edmonton just past the 13-minute mark to make it 1-0 for Edmonton at that point. Shortly after, Rasmus Andersson got into a scrum with Kailer Yamamoto, and it turned out Rasmus Andersson got fined on the play. It looked like there was a headshot, but upon further review, there was actually no headshot as first thought. So that's another thing to highlight that happened in the first period. Later in the first period, it was Connor McDavid who scored on the power play just before the 17.5-minute mark to make it 2-0 for Edmonton at that point. And then before the period closed, Nikita Zadorov, defenseman for the Calgary Flames, and Zach Cassian for the Edmonton Oilers were in a scrum with coincidental penalties. So Edmonton took a 2-0 lead after the first period. Both teams had 15 shots in net, so definitely was a fast-paced start and very physical for the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. Second period, Calgary had a power play when Connor McDavid held Milan Lucic, but nothing came out of that. However, Milan Lucic took a tripping penalty past the 4-minute mark to put Edmonton on the power play. And on that power play, not a good team to be short-handed against. It was Connor McDavid again who scored the second of the game just past the 5.5-minute mark. So Edmonton was up 3-0 at that point in the second period. Calgary was still putting in an effort all game and finally got on the board themselves. Later in the second period, as Calgary got on the board past the 9-minute mark, it was Andrew Mangiapane, who was the Flame who scored the first goal for the Calgary Flames this season. Made it 3-1 for Edmonton at that point. So there was no more to score in the report after that, so it was 3-1 for Edmonton. After the second period, as things settled down a bit for this matchup after a crazy first period. Third period, the Calgary Flames still kept pressing and on the power play and got a goal just past the 5-minute mark. It was Elias Lindholm. Andrew Mangiapane and Elias Lindholm, you're going to hear a lot of them in this episode. So it was Elias Lindholm who scored at 5-minute mark of the third period to make it 3-2 for Edmonton. At that point, well, that was as close as Calgary's got, because it was Jesse Puljujarvi who got the goal just right after the Elias Lindholm goal. It was on a partial breakaway. It came 26 seconds later. So Edmonton now regains their 2-goal lead by leading 4-2. I just felt after that play, all the momentum definitely went to the Edmonton side. And then Mike Smith, the former Calgary Flame, was also playing very well, and he was very busy in this net, as Calgary definitely peppered Mike Smith a lot more than a peppercorn steak in this game. Calgary still pressing heading into the final minutes of the third period, down by 2, ultimately pulled the goalie for the extra attacker. However, eventually it was Connor McDavid who scored the empty netter for the hat-trick, just over a minute and a half to go in the third period, so Edmonton took a 5-2 lead. And ultimately, it was the Edmonton Oilers who won the first game of the season for this season, winning 5-2, took the first Battle of Alberta. So as I say, the tradition continues for the Calgary Flames, as the last time the Calgary Flames won an opening game of the regular season was back in 2009, back when I was still selling in my first place, back in Pioneers. So it tells you how long it's been. So that was last year Calgary won the opening game of the regular season. As I mentioned, there were a lot of shots in this game. Calgary outshot the Edmonton Oilers 47-33. So Calgary had their chances. They kept up the play with the Edmonton Oilers, but when you get into penalty trouble with a guy named Connor McDavid on the ice, that spells trouble. So ultimately, Edmonton was led by Connor McDavid, obviously, who had 3 goals. Leon Draisaitl, another player that is also lethal on the power play, he had 3 assists. And it was Jesse Puljujarvi who had a goal and 2 assists in this one. No one had a multi-point game for the Calgary Flames in this game. Jacob Markstrom, who made 28 saves for Calgary. Well, it was Mike Smith. He definitely had a monster game. He made 45 saves for Edmonton. So that was a disappointing start for the Calgary Flames. As always, sucks and hurts to lose to the Edmonton Oilers, but I guess we come to expect that with the Calgary Flames, as they traditionally seem to always lose the season opener. So Game 2, this happened on Monday, October the 18th, as the Calgary Flames got to go home for their home opener, as they were taking on the Anaheim Ducks. This was at the Scotiabank Stadium for 7:30 puck drop. The first game was at Rogers Place, 8 p.m. puck drop at Hockey Night in Canada. So I'd say this was the Calgary Flames home opener and first time playing a non-Canadian team in a while, because last season was all about the North All-Canadian division. And Blake Coleman, who was one of the big frenzy signings the Calgary Flames made, was able to make his debut after serving his suspension going back from preseason, as he was suspended for the last preseason game and the first game. So Blake Coleman eventually got to make his Calgary Flame debut. And like the previous game, the Calgary Flames outshot their opponent and had a fast start in this one. And it was just past the 7.5 minute mark. Well, look who scored the first goal for the Calgary Flames at home. It was Blake Coleman who got his first as a Calgary Flame. So Calgary led 1-0 at that point. Then Anaheim got on a power play thanks to a Matthew Tkachuk interference penalty, where he tried to prevent the puck from going out of play from the bench. You know, the Matthew Tkachuk couldn't hold that stick up. That was that penalty. So on that power play, it was Cam Fowler who scored just before the 16-minute mark to tie up the game at 1-1. And that's how things stood after the first period, 1-1. Going into the second period, then Calgary continued their strong play and retook the lead as Elias Lindholm, who scored his second goal and second in as many games just before the 4-minute mark. So Calgary had a 2-1 lead at that point in the second period. And just before the 8.5-minute mark, it was Milan Lucic for Calgary and Nicholas Deloriers who had a fight. Got a highlight in there. So after that, there was nothing else to report, so there was no more scoring, so it was 2-1 for Calgary going into the third period. Going into the third period, Anaheim did press back, but Calgary still had the edge in play. Just before the 13-minute mark, it was Rickard Rakell who scored for Anaheim. That ties up the game at 2-2. So there's no more scoring to report from that point. So for the first time in the regular season, this one needs overtime. In overtime, Calgary did have one scoring chance, but ultimately it was Jamie Drysdale for Anaheim who scored the overtime winner for Anaheim at 3:26. Anaheim takes this one 3-2 in overtime. So Calgary actually outshot Anaheim 43-27. So once again, it was another frustrating game where Calgary outshot their opponent, couldn't get the offense, and outplayed them. Anaheim did have the edge in overtime, 3-1. So who led the way for the Calgary Flames? Actually, it was Johnny Gaudreau who led the way for the Calgary Flames, as he had 2 assists. On the Anaheim side of the puck, it was Troy Terry who also chipped in with 2 assists himself. For the goaltending story, Jacob Markstrom made 24 saves for Calgary, while it was John Gibson who made 41 saves for Edmonton, or Anaheim as I meant to say. So that was it for the Calgary Flames. Turns to being home, because after this game, they set on a 5-game road trip. So game 3, this was on Thursday, October the 21st, to kick off their 5-game road trip, as the Calgary Flames were taking on the Detroit Red Wings at Little Caesars Arena. This was a 5:30 p.m. kickoff as they first to 5 on the road, and for the first time in a while, the Calgary Flames were playing not in Canada. Also, Tyler Pitlick, another player that Calgary acquired from the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft, also made his debut as a Calgary Flame. For the first few minutes of this game, I felt the Detroit Red Wings definitely had the edge and outplayed Calgary and had some quality chances, but Jacob Markstrom stood tall in the first couple minutes of this game. However, then just past the 2.5-minute mark, it was Milan Lucic for Calgary, and it was Devini Smith for Detroit who had a fight. And I felt after that fight, that woke up the Calgary Flames. And I'm going to say they took over in the first period, and that was the jump they needed. Calgary eventually took over and played, and on the scoreboard too. First, it was Elias Lindholm, who scored his 3rd of the season and his 3rd goal in just as many games, just past the 10-minute marker to make it 1-0 for Calgary then. Andrew Mangiapane made it 2-0 for Calgary just before past the 14.5-minute mark on a backhand shot. I felt this play was set up by defenseman Eric Branson, who took a shot from the point that hit P.S. Suter hard on the play, and actually almost took him out because he definitely was staying on the ice. Definitely tell he was struggling from blocking that shot. So eventually, Andrew Mangiapane, as they put the goal away, so Calgary led 2-0, and it was 2-0 for Calgary after the first period. Second period, there was no scoring report, but Detroit did outplay Calgary in the second period, outshooting them 14-4. Jacob Markstrom keeps shutting the door when called upon. So ultimately, it was still 2-0 for Calgary going into the third period. I felt Calgary did come back with a better effort, but Detroit kept pressing back on keeping Calgary on their toes. I think Detroit, give them a couple of years, they're going to be an exciting team to watch when they get more competitive. So with just over 2.5 minutes to go in the third period, down by 2, Detroit pulled their goalie for their extra attacker. Ultimately, it was Matthew Tkachuk who put it away in the empty netter just past the 17.5-minute mark. So Calgary took a 3-0 lead and ultimately shut down the Detroit Red Wings to win their first game of the season, 2021-22, with a 3-0 victory. Detroit outshot Calgary 33-29 this one. Calgary was led by Johnny Gaudreau and Eric Branson, who each had 2 assists in this one. Jacob Markstrom made 33 saves in the shutout for Calgary, while it was Alex Nedeljkovic, as I meant to say, he made 26 saves for Detroit. So that was the first game of the road trip. So game 4, this happened on Saturday, October the 23rd, for their second game of a 5-game road trip, as the Calgary Flames moved shop to Washington to take on the Washington Capitals at the Capital One Arena at 11 a.m. puck drop, 11 a.m. Mountain, so some afternoon delight for this one. And ultimately it was Dan Vladar who made his first start in net for the Calgary Flames, the goaltender that we acquired from the Boston Bruins to looked upon to back up Jacob Markstrom. And early in the season, Sean Monahan, I'm going to say, has struggled, and he was put on the fourth line. So those are a couple tidbits to open up this game against the Washington Capitals. First period, the Calgary Flames had a very strong start and opened up the scoring. First, it was Andrew Mangiapane's third, just on the power play just before the 9.5-minute mark. So Calgary took a 1-0 lead about midway in the first period. Then a minute 32 later, just before the 11-minute mark, it was Elias Lindholm who got his fourth goal of the season and his fourth in just as many games to make it 2-0 for Calgary. Then, while shorthanded past the 17-minute mark, it was Elias Lindholm again who scored for the Calgary Flames, his second of the game, to put Calgary up 3-0 at that point. So Calgary took a 3-0 lead after the first period against the Washington Capitals. So things were definitely looking fine and dandy for Calgary Flames for this afternoon game. However, going into the second period, Washington replaced Vitek Vanacek, who started in net for the Washington Capitals, got replaced by Elias in net. And it might have worked for Washington as Washington got back into this one in the second period. First on the power play just before the 3-minute marker was Evgeny Kuznetsov for Washington. His fourth of the season, put them on the board. And then just past the 7.5-minute mark, it was Martin February who got his first for the Washington Capitals. Now made it 3-2 for Calgary at that point of the game. And then Washington ties up the game at 3-3, as it was Alexander Ovechkin who got his fifth of the season. Just note his 735th goal of his career. And this happened past the 18-minute mark of the second period. So now we have a 3-3 game after the second period, after both teams having 3-goal periods. Calgary scored 3 in the first period. Washington scored 3 in the second period. So what did the third period have in store? I'm going to say the third period, definitely both teams played defensively, and there was actually no scoring to report. So guess what? This one needs overtime. So in overtime, both teams had good chances to look to end it. Ultimately, it was Elias Lindholm. Yes, Elias Lindholm again scored the game winner at the 2:46-minute mark of overtime for the hat-trick. Also, the highlight was one, it was set up nicely by Johnny Gaudreau and Dan Vladar for the overtime play. And then on that play, it was Johnny Gaudreau who, with the assist, he picked up his 500th career point, all with the Calgary Flames. So congratulations to Johnny Gaudreau. So with the 4-3 overtime win for the Calgary Flames, Calgary actually outshot Washington 27-25, including Washington having the 3-2 edge in overtime. Calgary was led away, obviously, by Elias Lindholm, who had 3 goals for the hat-trick. Johnny Gaudreau chipped in with 2 assists on the Washington side of the puck, while Alexander Ovechkin, he had 1 goal and assist. So when it comes to the goaltending story, well, Dan Vladar, in his first start, with the win, he made 22 saves for Calgary, while it was Vitek Vanacek who made 10 saves for Washington in the first period, before being replaced the rest of the way by Elias who made 13 saves for the Washington Capitals. So Calgary has won the first 2 games of their 5-game road trip. So Game 5, this happened on Monday, October the 25th, as now the Calgary Flames have moved shop to New York to take on the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden. This was a 5 p.m. puck drop for Game 3 of 5 of the road trip. And as I always like to say, Madison Square Garden, that's definitely one arena that I really want to catch a game in. But getting to the game in hand, first period, Calgary once again looked strong and had a complete effort to start. It was late in the first period. It was Brett Ritchie for Calgary and Jacob Trouba for New York who took coincidental roughing penalties, which was the only penalties in the first period at that point. So it was a pretty clean game. So it wasn't until like the 18-minute mark. Calgary also got a goal late, as it was Chris Tanev who scored his first of the season just past the at 18:50. So Calgary took a 1-0 lead at that point and had a 1-0 lead after the first period. Calgary, going into the second period, did strike early, as it was Andrew Mangiapane who scored his 4th of the season at that point, just past the 2-minute mark. So Calgary now took a 2-0 lead at that point, and that's how actually things stood after the second period. So Calgary had a 2-0 lead Going in the third period on the road against the New York Rangers, another team that's looked poised to compete for a playoff spot in the Metropolitan this season. It was also cleanly played off the third period too, as things did open up for both sides, and New York was able to get on the board, as it was Kevin Rooney who scored his second of the season just before the 5.5 minute mark. So now we have a 2-1 game for Calgary at that point. Calgary opened up their lead later in the third period. First it was Blake Coleman who got his second of the season just past the 8-minute mark, and then it was Mikael Backlund who got his first of the season just past the 11.5 minute mark. So in a few minutes, Calgary now extends their lead to 4-1 at that point, and then heading into the final minutes of the third period, Calgary had a late power play, and it was Andrew Mangiapane who got his second of the game for his fifth of the season. So Calgary won this one 5-1. It was Andrew Mangiapane who scored the goal with 5 seconds to go in the game. So Calgary wins this one 5-1 for their third straight win, and their third straight win on this road trip. So Calgary stayed perfect on the road. So Calgary also outshot the New York Rangers 37-29 overall. Calgary was led by Andrew Mangiapane, who had 2 goals in this one. Mikael Backlund and Blake Coleman each had a goal and assist. So when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, Jacob Markstrom made 28 saves for Calgary, while it was Igor Shesterkin who made 32 saves for the New York Rangers. So that was game number 5. So game number 6, for the last game that I'll recap in this episode. This happened the next night as the Calgary Flames were taking on the New Jersey Devils. I mentioned on Tuesday, October 26th, just across the Hudson River. They went to play at the Prudential Center, 5 p.m. puck drop, 4th of 5 on this road trip. And it was Dan Vladar who got the second start as a Calgary Flame in this one. And also, once again, the Calgary Flames had a fast start and got up on the New Jersey Devils fairly early. First it was Milan Lucic who scored his first of the season just past the 6.5 minute mark, so Calgary took a 1-0 lead at that point. Then Andrew Mangiapane scored his 6th of the season just past the 10-minute mark to make it 2-0 for Calgary. Then, as I warned you, as I say, we were going to hear live Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane, because on the power play, it was Elias Lindholm who scored his 7th of the season just past the 12-minute mark, and we're still in the first period. So Calgary now led 3-0 against the New Jersey Devils. Calgary continued with their offense just before the 13-minute mark as Andrew Mangiapane. He scored his 2nd of the game and 7th of the season, just to make it 4-0. So Calgary led 4-0 in the first period, and then after the third goal, as I mentioned, it was Nico Dawes who started in net for the New Jersey Devils. He got replaced by Scott Wedgwood. So after the third goal that the Flames scored, New Jersey decided to change goalies, just like changing bus drivers on a long road trip, but for different reasons. So after that, things settled down, and Calgary took a 4-0 lead after the first period. Second period, Calgary continued to play strong, but ultimately, New Jersey did find themselves to get on the board, as was Pavel Zacha, who scored his 2nd or his 3rd of the season just past the 7-minute mark. That was the only goal of the second period, so Calgary still enjoyed a 4-1 lead against the New Jersey Devils after the second period. Third period, New Jersey did press back after being outplayed and outscored the previous 2 periods. However, first on the power play, Calgary made it 5-1, as it was Tkachuk who scored his 2nd of the season just past the 11-minute mark. However, 33 seconds later, it was New Jersey Devils who struck back to get within 3, as it was Dawson Mercer got his 2nd of the season. So now it was 5-2 for Calgary just before the 12-minute mark of the third period. Then just before the 13.5-minute mark, Matthew Tkachuk for Calgary and Ty Smith for New Jersey took coincidental penalties. Then at the 16.5-minute mark, it was Yusuf Valimaki for Calgary and Andreas Johansson for New Jersey took unsportsmanlike penalties, but it was Yusuf Valimaki who took an extra holding the stick penalty. So that gave New Jersey a late power play in the third period, and on that said power play, it was Pavel Zacha who scored his 2nd goal of this game just before the 17-minute mark. So now it's 5-3 for Calgary. At that point, now with New Jersey keep pressing back, and they pulled the goalie for the extra attacker with a few minutes ago in the third period. However, there was no scoring for New Jersey or Calgary. So Calgary ultimately takes this one 5-3 for their fourth straight win and go 4-0 at this point on the road trip. New Jersey also outshot Calgary 30-29 in this one. Calgary was led by Andrew Mangiapane, who had 2 goals, and New Jersey also had a 2-goal scorer in Pavel Zacha. New Jersey also had Dawson Mercer, who chipped in with a goal and assist, and former Flame Dougie Hamilton chipped in with 2 assists for New Jersey. Goaltending story of the game was Dan Vladar, who made 27 saves for the Calgary Flames, winning his first 2 games as a Flame. And I saw that he's the 5th goalie to do that. I know that Mika Kiprasov, Tyler Moss, Jean-Sebastien Giguère, I know for sure the other goalies that have done that, where they've won their first 2 starts as a Calgary Flame. Then when it comes to the Jersey side of the puck, well, as Nico Dawes, who only made 4 saves before being replaced by Scott Wedgwood, who made 20 saves the rest of the way after the Calgary Flames' 3rd goal. So after 6 games, the Calgary Flames have 4 wins, 1 loss, and 1 overtime or shootout loss for 9 points. So I'm going to say right now, the Calgary Flames are looking pretty good so far early in the season. So let's just take a quick look at stats and standings before we move on to other business in this video. So when it comes to Flames stats, as I pull up the app here, as the 2 leading goal scorers is Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane. They both have 7 goals, which puts them in the top 10 in the league at this point. Because I think the league leader right now, if you look at the league leaders, Alexander Ovechkin actually has 8 goals. But Connor McDavid also has 7 goals. So at this point, Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane have just as many goals as Connor McDavid at this point. And then when it comes to assists, well, Johnny Gaudreau actually leads the team with 8 assists. So when it comes to points, well, Elias Lindholm and Johnny Gaudreau each have 8 points each, but Johnny Gaudreau is still looking for his first goal of the season, but he's still playing pretty well, if you ask me, overall, despite not having any goals to his name. And then when it comes to goaltending, well, Jacob Markstrom so far in this season, in 4 games played, he's 2-1-1 with a goals against average of .199 and a save percentage of .934 with that 1 shutout. And then Dan Vladar, he's played in 2 games so far. He's 2-0. He has a .294 goals against average and .891 save percentage. So I'm going to say so far out of Dan Vladar, I like what I see, and he definitely looked pretty good in preseason. That maybe we have someone who could back up Jacob Markstrom to give 25 quality starts to spell off Jacob Markstrom. So when it comes to team percentages, actually Calgary is 6th in the league when it comes to the power play, as they have a 29.4% efficiency, but the Edmonton Oilers lead the way at 42.9%. So we're not kidding when I say you're playing dangerously, being short-handed against the Edmonton Oilers. Excuse me. So for the penalty kill, the Calgary Flames are a little lower, as they are 21st in the NHL with 79%. St. Louis has the best at 93.8%. Shots for per game. Excuse me. Shots against per game. Actually, Calgary's 9th in the league with 30. Washington leads at 27. And then face-off win percentage. Where does the Calgary Flames rank? They are tied for 17th in the league at 49% with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Philadelphia leads the league at 58.7. So that's just a quick stats story. So when it comes to the standings, taking a look at the Western Conference by division, is the Edmonton Oilers are first in the Pacific Division right now with 10 points at 5-1. But the Calgary Flames are second at 4-1-1 for 9 points. Surprisingly, San Jose is third, as they're 4-2 for 8 points after 6 games. Vancouver is fourth. After 7 games, they're 3-1 for 7 points. Then Vegas. Surprised to see them down there at 5th right now. After 7 games, they're 3-4 for 6 points, but they're without top 2 centers in Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone. Then the Seattle Kraken. After 7 games, they're 2-4-1 for 5 points. Right now, they are looking like an expansion team. And then in 7th place is the Anaheim Ducks. They are 2-4-1 for 5 points. And then the Los Angeles Kings are last at after 6 games, they're 1-4-1. So I'll just take a look at the Pacific Division at this point of the season. In the next episode, we'll take a look around the league as more trends are built up and we're getting closer to the first quarter of the season being over. So that is the quick stats and story. So the next segment we'll take a look at is the Stockton Heat quick hits. So let's cue that. So let's take a look how the Stockton Heat is doing, as they have played 4 games up to this point of their regular season in the American Hockey League. And Stockton, by the way, is back playing in Stockton, California this season. So the Stockton Heat's first game was on Friday, October the 15th, as the Stockton Heat were taking on the Tucson Roadrunners. This was in Stockton. This was an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. And the Tucson Roadrunners are the Arizona Coyotes affiliate. And Tucson won the first game 1-0 in overtime. We can highlight is that Dustin Wolf, he made 34 saves in this game for Stockton, as Tucson also shot Stockton 35-29. And then the next night, game 2 on Saturday, October the 16th, as the Tucson Roadrunners and the Stockton Heat were playing each other once again in the Stockton Arena. Stockton won this one 3-2 for their second game. Highlight was this one was Justin Kirkland, Walker Duehr, and Jacob Pelche. Each had a goal, and Dustin Wolf made 32 saves, but Tucson outshot Stockton 34-25 in this one. So the next game that the Stockton Heat played was in Game 3. This happened on Friday, October the 22nd, as the Stockton Heat were on the road as they were taking on the San Diego Gulls in San Diego at the Pechanga Arena. This is an 8 p.m. puck drop, and the San Diego Gulls honored the Anaheim Ducks affiliate as Stockton won this one 6-2. Jacob Pelche had a pretty big game. He had a goal and 2 assists. Calgary's first round draft pick in 2019. Matthew Phillips, Adam Brzezinski, and Luke Phillip each had a goal and assist. And it was Adam Werner who made 20 saves in net for Stockton. And then the last game that Stockton Heat played for this episode, Game 4, this happened on Saturday, October the 23rd, as Stockton were still on the road. They were taking on the Bakersfield Condors at the Mechanics Bank Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop. Bakersfield is the Edmonton Oilers affiliate. And it was Brian Fraze and Glenn Godwin, each having 2 assists. As Glenn Godwin was on the opening day roster for the Calgary Flames, but he eventually got sent down to the Stockton Heat. He had to go on waivers before he went down to Stockton, but now that's where Glenn Godwin is. And it was Dustin Wolf who made 31 saves for Stockton. So I'm going to say a couple of our prospects are looking pretty good right now, I would say, for the Stockton Heat, future Flames in the future, I should say. So now let's take a look ahead to the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames. That will encompass the next episode, and then we'll take a look at the next few games that I'll capture for the Stockton Heat for quick hits. So the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames as they wrap up their 5-game road trip is on Thursday, October 28th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. This will be a 5 p.m. puck drop at the PPG Pates Arena, and then afterwards you'll start seeing some more red on this schedule. More red boxes as the Calgary Flames will be coming back home. So Game 8, interestingly, the Calgary Flames are on the road to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But for Game 8 on Saturday, October 30th, the Calgary Flames come home to the Scotiabank Saddledome, 8 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night Canada, as they will be hosting the Philadelphia Flyers. I just find it interesting that they're in Pittsburgh, and then they come home to take on Philadelphia. So Philadelphia comes here on Saturday, October 30th to wrap up October. And then Game 9, this will be on Tuesday, November the 2nd, as the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Nashville Predators. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then Game 10, this will be on Thursday, November the 4th, as the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Dallas Stars. That will be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then Game 11 on Saturday, November the 6th, as the Calgary Flames will be hosting the New York Rangers. So I guess we'll get the New York Rangers out of the way early in the season. So that will be a 8 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada. And then Game 12 on Tuesday, November the 9th, the Calgary Flames will be hosting the San Jose Sharks. So that will be a 7 p.m. puck drop at Scotiabank Saddledome as well. So after when Calgary wrap up their 5-game road trip, the next 5 games in next episode, they will be back at home in front of the Sea of Red, as Calgary only had their 1 game at home, and it was Game 2 against the Anaheim Ducks. So when it comes to the Stockton Heat, they'll have 4 games that they'll play for the next episode. Stockton Heat's 5th game will be on Saturday, October the 30th, as the Stockton Heat will be at home taking on the Colorado Eagles. That'll be at Stockton Arena, 7 p.m. puck drop. The Colorado Eagles are the Colorado Avalanche affiliate. And then Game 6 on Sunday, October 31st, as the Stockton Heat will still be at home. They'll be taking on the San Jose Barracuda, 6 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. San Jose Barracuda is the San Jose Sharks affiliate. And then Game 7 on Wednesday, November the 3rd, as the Stockton Heat will be on the road. This time they'll be taking on the San Jose Barracuda in San Jose at the S&P Center, 8 p.m. puck drop, same arena that the San Jose Sharks play in. And then Game 8 on Friday, November the 5th, the Stockton Heat go up to Abbotsford. No, they're not in Abbotsford. They'll be back in Stockton. That they will be taking on the Abbotsford Canucks. That will be an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. And the Abbotsford Canucks are the affiliate for the Vancouver Canucks. And interestingly, Calgary Flames farm team used to be in Abbotsford. And then Game 9 on Saturday, November 6th, the Stockton Heat will be taking on the Abbotsford Canucks again at the Stockton Arena, 7 p.m. puck drop. So that is to take a look ahead for the next games that will be in the next episode. And just the final thoughts that I have for the Calgary Flames is right now things are looking good. We always seem to lose that first game of the regular season. I guess I got a joke and say I guess that's starting to become a tradition. But I'm going to say I liked how Calgary has looked, especially Andrew Mangiapane and Elias Lindholm. They've definitely been the key contributors to our offense early this season. Definitely been getting great goaltending with Jacob Markstrom and Dan Vidar. However, I am still a little concerned about Sean Monahan. He has struggled so far this season. And then, of course, I think I still eventually have to make a video on it separately. But it seems like this Jack Eichel to the Calgary Flames, that rumor doesn't seem to want to go away. But I'm not too sure if this would be the time to pull the trigger, because things are going well for the Calgary Flames right now. Keep in mind that Jack Eichel, even let's say if he gets traded right now, he probably won't be playing until December or the New Year with his neck surgery. But let's say if we do get Jack Eichel, maybe you should give Gary Roberts a call to find out how he recovered from neck surgery, given that the neck surgery is yet then. But that's just my thoughts right now with the Calgary Flames. I'm going to say right now we are looking good, but from unlikely sources at this point. So that is my Calgary Flames in 6, recapping games 1 to 6. So anyways, I'd like to say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames hitting Roughnecks and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel where I recap games and stories. But I also do a variety of non-sports content like person vlogs. Tap to call me, and I do share my strategies when I'm on my road or at a sport event, and I have done some blogging to go in the past. So if that all sounds like the interest to watch, do follow along this Calgary sports fans journey. You know what you do, just make sure you like and subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. Also check out my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts. On that channel, I exclusively do put YouTube shorts on that channel. For example, for Calgary Flames games, I put a post-game short on how the Calgary Flames did right after that game. And with some of these games being in the Eastern time zone during the week, I'm able to post that short right away, as the game doesn't wrap up past my bedtime o'clock. So you can check out my second channel as well, so I appreciate the like and subscribe here on my main channel and my second channel while you're at it. So I just want to say thanks for watching. Go Flames go, and I'll see you in the next video.